Hello, I'm Sheryl McCarthy of the City University of New York. Welcome to One to One. Each week, we address issues of timely and timeless concern with newsmakers and the journalists who report on them, with artists, writers, scientists, educators, social scientists, activists, government, and nonprofit leaders. We meet each one to one. It's hard to believe that fear of flying is 40 years old. For those of us of a certain age, it doesn't seem that long ago that we were shocked and possibly enthralled by Isadora Wing and her wild and sexually free lifestyle. Do today's young women find her sexual adventures shocking or just par for the course? And how do those of us who first encountered her 40 years ago feel about her now? For those of us who want to revisit her story, and for those who want to discover her for the first time, an anniversary edition of the book has just been published by Henry Holt and Penguin Classics. I'm delighted to welcome her creator, author Erica Jong, to the program. Welcome.
Thank you.
So why a special anniversary edition? Whose idea was that?
I can't even remember at this point whose idea it was, but you know, Americans love anniversaries. And it seemed that 40 years was an interesting time to have an anniversary. And there's a resurgence of feminism, and people are talking about sex again. And we're interested in seeing how women feel. We've had a huge backlash to our revolution, states introducing crazy laws against women's bodies. We've seen the GOP war on women. So it seemed like a good time to do it.
Has the book ever been out of print?
Never.
I don't think so. When Fear of Flying came out in 1973, it was at the height of the sexual revolution. Birth control was available and legal. Roe v. Wade was actually, the decision came that year, made abortion legal, and a lot of women were exercising their newfound sexual freedom to have guiltless sex with as many men as they wanted to. Even so, Isadora Wing's promiscuity seemed to be a little on the extreme end of sexual liberation. Did you mean to shock the readers of your book, or were you just writing about what you were seeing happening at the time?
I was writing about what I felt. Actually, Isadora Wing is not very promiscuous. If you look at the book, I mean, she's promiscuous in her fantasy life. She has the fantasy of the famous zipless bleep, as we have to say on family TV, but she's not sleeping with a whole lot of men. That was kind of a misinterpretation that male critics gave the book. What she's looking for is how to be a whole human being, a body and a mind. And that is what women were newly aware they needed in 1973. I mean, we had gone through many revolutions. We had gone through the civil rights movement, the beginnings of it. We had gone through the feminist movement, the beginnings of it. And now we were saying, we are minds, but we are also bodies. How can we bring the two together?
Mm-hmm. So Isadora leaves her perfectly nice, handsome, intelligent, tolerant husband and goes off with this guy who sort of turns out to be a creep.
He's sketchy. A very sketchy
and is
guy.
often impotent on top of that. Right. So is the message of the book that sexual liberation tends to be overrated? That you wind up in a hotel room without a tampon, or being afraid that you might be pregnant, or what?
Well, I don't think that you write fiction when you have one particular message. I think fiction is what you write when you want to show the complexity of human beings. And the truth of the matter is that we long for sexuality, but sexuality can be messy. It can be not what we expected, and it is not the cure for every restlessness. At that time, in the 70s, many people thought it was. Also, we were at a period when censorship had just been defeated. Do you remember Portnoy's complaint? John Updike's Couples, in which one of the women says to her lover, "Welcome to the post-pill paradise." We were in what we thought was the post-pill paradise, and there was a longing for freedom. But freedom, you know, as Janis Joplin sang, freedom's just another word for nothing left to lose. So actually, in the novel, you have both points of view
That's true.
arguing with each other.
Right.
And that's the nature of novels. Novels show the complexity. Nonfiction may give you a caveat, do this, do that, but novels don't do that.
Rereading the book, I was reminded of Doris Lessing's The Golden Notebook, which I haven't read for a long, long time.
Love that
And I
book.
just remember that all of the protagonist men were obnoxious, not to mention most of them turned out to be married. I don't know, did Lessing influence your writing at all?
Very much. Actually, I loved The Golden Notebook, which came out the year I graduated from college. And I think that in many ways, Doris Lessing was trying to do what I was doing. She was trying to bring the body and the mind together. Because you remember that Anna Wolf has a political notebook, she has a romantic notebook, and she's trying to bring all these notebooks together. She's trying to say women are bodies, women are minds, and we need to be free to be all of those things.
So, what was the upside of the sexual revolution, and what was the downside?
Perhaps the upside of the sexual revolution was an acknowledgement that we had desire, women, and that we wanted our desire to be satisfied. That's the upside. Not every woman accomplished that. We've had a big retrenchment, but at least women came to feel that their desire was a part of them and was not to be put down. Psychologists would use fear of flying to show women that fantasy was a good thing. I believe that fantasy is the female Viagra. They're always looking for a female Viagra. Well, the ability to fantasize is it, in my opinion.
Now, is it one of the reasons for Isadora's, I guess, rebellion against the mores, sexual mores, was that she was rebelling against her mother's life? She didn't want to be like a mother who was always complaining, I gave up my career as an artist to get married and have you. A lot of young women today, their mothers or even grandmothers went through women's lib, have had careers. So is there the same need to rebel against that?
Always. I mean, I think that
it's just what you do.
It's
your
what
daughter.
in order to define your own difference from your mother and your grandmother. Although we don't feel as rebellious against our grandmothers often are the rocks in our life that give us stability when we're going through all the rebellion against our mother. I think grandmothers can be very important. But what I see today is young women saying, my mother won the right to be eternally exhausted. Do I want that? All she did was work, 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 and run home to take care of us. What a rotten life. She was always exhausted. And so some of them, if they can afford it, are rebelling against that model. These are very elitist women who are rebelling against that model. Most women work because they have to. They don't work as fulfillment. And now that we have this huge gap between the rich and the poor and a shrinking of the middle class, women are supporting families all over our country. And thank goddess they can. But they're still not earning as much as their husbands.
When I look at TV shows like Girls, and I don't watch it regularly, but I see it occasionally, I get a sense of it. It seems that being more sexually uninhibited it seems to be par for the course these days. And just as messy and at times unsatisfying as it was for Isadora.
Exactly.
So for young women who are now, say, in their 20s, do you think, and reading your book for the first time, do you think it will be as shocking as it was to some of us, or will be more a reflection of their lives?
What they tell me is that it's not shocking, but that it mirrors a lot of their confusions. They're not shocked by the sexuality, but a lot of them are having sex like the girls in Girls that doesn't give them pleasure. They're pleasuring men, men are not pleasuring them. And we see that in Girls, and young women tell me that all the time.
You were talking about sort of like the backlash against women that you feel has been going on in recent years. Do you think there has been a retreat at all in the sexual revolution movement or not?
I don't think that among people on the coasts and in Chicago, we don't see a retreat, but all these states are introducing crazy anti-abortion rules where they stick probes up women's vaginas, whether they want them or not. They're passing laws that they know are unconstitutional. They're shutting down Planned Parenthood clinics, and they're making it very, very hard in about 8 states for women to get birth control. I've always believed that the evangelicals, right to lifers, were not talking about abortion. They were talking about birth control, but they just didn't want to say it out loud. Now you see what they're doing. In Texas, there is no more Planned Parenthood. That's a huge state. Women depend on Planned Parenthood. For many of them, it's their only health care.
Right, right.
So you see that a very narrow fringe of the Republican Party is able to impact our country in a very negative way.
But I guess what I'm asking is, do you see young women who had said, you know, who had embraced the idea of being sexually liberated, and I don't have to be married to have sex, and I don't have to love him to have sex, maybe pulling back and saying, you know, I'm going to be celibate for a while, or I'm only going to sleep with 3 men this year as opposed to 6.
Yes, I do. I do see that. And I see, I mean, Fear of Flying said free sex is not a panacea. It was misinterpreted. But I see more and more women saying that. Maybe I'll be celibate for a while. Maybe I won't sleep with somebody on the first date. Maybe I'll wait and see if we're friends as well as lovers. Actually, I support that because I think that when you get to know somebody and you're good friends and then you have sex, you have a better chance of a long-term relationship.
Oh, Isadora and Erica have mellowed, aged.
We certainly have aged, that's for sure.
We're going to take a short break, and we'll be back with more with Erica Jong, author of Fear of Flying, after the following. Welcome back to One to One. I'm Sheryl McCarthy of the City University of New York, and I'm talking with the writer Erica Jong, whose first novel, Fear of Flying, is celebrating its 40th birthday with a new edition published by Henry Holt and Penguin Classics. One of the things that Isadora Wing seemed to be doing is protesting the institution of marriage, its restrictions, and the idea that there was no dignified way. It was commonly felt that there was no dignified way for a woman to live alone. Do you think that's still the public perception, that there's no dignified way for a woman to live alone without a husband or a man?
I think that's one of the things that's changed fabulously. I am constantly meeting women in their 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s who are living alone and loving it. Doesn't mean they don't have men friends, doesn't mean they don't have men lovers, but that is one great result of the second wave of feminism. Women who are living alone, whose lives are full of friends, travel, work, everything, and who don't feel that in some way they're inferior because they don't have a man at their side. Look, most of us will be alone eventually anyway. You know, it's true. We will probably be living the last decade or 2 decades of our lives on our own.
Right.
And I see so much exuberance among women alone. It thrills me.
Yet you've been married 4 times, so there's something about it that keeps you coming back.
Yes, but I'm also much more independent than I ever was. I mean, when I travel without my husband, I miss him, but I'm quite happy traveling on my own. There are things I can do on my own that he might not be interested in, although we have a lot of interests in common. I don't have that panic anymore when I'm without a man. And I think that's disappearing among women.
I read an interview that you did with the Observer in which you say that we're not really ready for marriage until we're over 50.
I think that's true. I think that when you're over 50 and you've done a lot of dangerous things and you've made a lot of mistakes, you can appreciate the stability of marriage far better. I mean, you want one best friend in a hostile world. And that person doesn't necessarily have to be male either. It could be a woman partner. It could be a partner with whom you don't have a sexual relationship. But you do want, we seem to be coupling creatures. We want a BFF, a best friend forever, to travel with. We want a daughter who grows into a relationship with us. It's great to have that. We seem to be coupling creatures, not solitary creatures.
Fear of Flying was a huge hit. Is it 27 million copies?
Yeah,
or
around the world. In many, it's just come out in China in a
Really?
legal edition, and in Korea. I mean, it's amazing to me.
Yet in her introduction to the anniversary edition, Jennifer Weiner suggests that women authors are second-class citizens in the publishing world, that the books they write about their relationships are not promoted as much as the books men write about their relationships. Is this really true?
I think Jennifer is onto something. I think that women are ghettoized as chick lit, not serious, with a few exceptions. But honestly, it's very hard, if you write about women and women's struggles, to be seen as important with a capital I.
Mm-hmm. If you're a black writer, it's hard to get them to let you write about anything except black stuff.
That is terrible. I hate the labeling of writers.
And then they complain, well, blacks never write about anything broader than that, but that's all they want from you.
Yeah,
it seems.
Absolutely. And I think that we need to get rid of these labels. We need to get rid of the label of women's fiction, African American fiction. If you're a writer, you see the whole world, and you want the right to be able to write about the whole world, men, women, people of color. I mean, I find that appalling. I mean, we've lived through an age of labeling, and I find that very sad.
Who are your favorite authors?
Well, I'm full of admiration of Doris Lessing. I'm full of admiration of Toni Morrison. Pablo Neruda was a hero of poetry to me. He unlocked poetry for me. You know, it took the South American surrealists, most of whom lived in Paris, to bring the message of Whitman to us. I love his poetry. His poetry means everything to me.
You've written a lot of books since
I sure have.
How many altogether?
24.
Okay. Which ones are you the proudest of?
Well, I'm always most excited about the novel I'm writing, but the book I'm proudest of is Fanny Being the True History of the Adventures of Fanny Hackabout Jones, a female picaresque, What If Tom Jones Had Been a Woman, in which I follow the life of a girl who's raped by her stepfather, goes off on the road, and becomes a highwaywoman, a pirate, a prostitute in a literary brothel, and ends happily in her own utopia called Libertalia, where all the pirates and highwaymen are plowing the fields.
Okay.
So it's a utopian novel. It's kind of a female Tom Jones or Candide.
Okay.
And they all wind up cultivating their own garden.
Okay.
And there are women characters, men characters, and characters of color. And I took great delight in this book. And it's written in the style of an 18th century picaresque.
Okay. Now, you graduated from Barnard. A lot of the women that I interview from this show, I guess women of a certain age, went to women's colleges. Maybe it's because you couldn't go to a lot of the, there were a lot of men's colleges you couldn't go to then, so if you were smart when you went to one of the women's colleges. How was the Barnard experience for you?
It was the perfect school for me. I arrived there from LaGuardia High School of Music and Art, where I had been a painter, and suddenly the whole world of literature was open to me, because at LaGuardia we focused a lot on art history, painting techniques, but academically it was not so deep. And I absolutely adored Barnard.
Mm-hmm. And is that where you started writing, or had you always written?
I had been writing in middle school, and I had been writing in high school, and at Music and Art I was the editor of the yearbook and the newspaper and all that. But I really began seriously writing at Barnard.
Mm-hmm. Sexual liberation was the new frontier at that time. What do you think is the next frontier for women?
The next frontier is completing our liberation, understanding that feminism is mentoring, which is one of the reasons I created the Erica Jong writing program at Barnard. It's a program in which all the students take a course in editing, and then they circulate through the school, helping students in every department write term papers. And of course, if you learn to edit, you can edit yourself. So if you want to be a writer, nothing is better than a course in editing. And it's become a kind of signature program of the school, and I'm very proud of it.
Mm-hmm. How did fear of flying, change your life?
Oh God,
fame. You tell me that.
Fame in America. when you get famous in America as a woman, famous for sexuality, watch out. It's a rough road. We're still a rather Puritan country. My first book was interpreted as a manual of promiscuity, which it's not. And I had a very rough time at the beginning. I had to learn how to deal with the Murdochian press. Not easy. And there's a kind of oversimplification that goes on in the media, which is, well, I don't have to tell you, you're a J school or we're a J school professor. Our press has gone down, down, down. And they're in search of eyeballs, not truth.
Mm-hmm. What do you hope the women who are reading your book for the first time will get out of it?
I hope they'll get out of it that it's okay to be lusty and desirous. You don't have to act out everything you dream about. I hope they'll understand that women are marvelous creatures who have many, many parts to them. We are sexual creatures, we are intellectual creatures, we are political creatures, and all these things come together to make who we are. We're whole beings. All my books are about women as whole beings.
You have a daughter, Molly. How old is she?
She's 35.
What does she think of Isadora Wing?
She won't read my books.
Really?
Which I think is very healthy. She's an author herself. She's published 3 books with Random House. She's very, very funny. She has very much her own voice. And she wants me to be Mamo, not a writer.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that she won't let me edit her books, and she won't edit my books. She's on her own. First of all, she won't let me edit her books because she tells me that I'm too nice. I had a mother who was a critic of my work, and I don't want to be my daughter's critic. The world is full of critics. She'll find them under every rock. So she tells me I'm too nice, and she doesn't want me as her editor.
Mm-hmm.
And she doesn't want me as an author, she wants me as mom.
Okay. And now for the really important question. Do Isadora and her husband get back together?
For a little while.
Okay.
They do. And then they split again.
Okay.
Just as often in life, you know, you try to leave and you can't. And you try again and you can't. But eventually you grow into this new person who can.
And does that happen in another book? It doesn't happen in Fear of Flying.
It doesn't. Fear of Flying ends with a cliffhanger.
Right, right.
And there are 2 more books about Isadora.
Okay.
And you'll see when you read them.
Okay. Well, for now, I know. I'm afraid we're out of time, but I want to thank Erica Jong for joining us today. Fear of Flying's 40th anniversary edition has just been published by Henry Holt and Penguin Classics. For the City University of New York and One to One, I'm Sheryl McCarthy. If there are any people you'd like to hear from or topics you'd like us to explore, please let us know. You can write to me at CUNY TV, 365 Fifth Avenue, New York, New York, 10016, or you can go to the website at cuny.tv and click on Contact Us. I look forward to hearing from you.